Hi there, and welcome to this quick tip for BinocuFit. Today we're going to talk about routines and how you create them. So we just recently added where you can make an in-office routine. So an in-office routine would be used for a patient who you want to run through a couple of these activities. So you pull this up in your dashboard and you select the activities that you want to put into that routine. You select whether you want the stability grids there, what mode you want, and then you go on and select the next one. So you can see I'm able to select a few different of the same activity to do it in a couple different modes. Here I'm going to add the BinocuPop, which is the binocular stereo training. And notice that I have all three of those boxes checked: convergence, divergence, and mixed. And then I'm also doing this routine. That's a mistake. So you want to make sure that you don't have those boxes checked if you want to do the routine, which you'll see when we get further down in the recording where that shows up as a mistake. And I realized that wasn't there. So I had to name it. I called it Basic 1. And so this allows you just to be able to select those activities and easily just go from one activity to the next in an office session without having to go back out to the dashboard. So now we're going to do that routine. So you see kind of what that flow looks like. So I hit run the routine. And I'm here on my 4x4 matching, and we'll just do it. This is the red and the green with the stability grid. You can see in that upper right-hand corner, if you wanted to take the stability grid away, those gray lines will go away so that you don't have that feedback. And you can also add the snow in that upper right-hand corner. So that's what's reported for you is that 16 seconds. And now I have a red and green Sudoku that was on my list there to do, and we'll go ahead and do that. And again, remember, you can always add the snow in that top right-hand corner. That dot that is highlighted green in that top right-hand corner is that what I call the anchor button. And that's why that number 2 in the bottom left-hand corner is black. So it adds a couple of those black anchors. And again, you can click that off, so there would be no black anchors. But the Sudoku always has that kind of gray outline to the pieces, so you always have that stability grid type of thing there. But also remember, you can also add that snow over there. So and you can see I added in to do 1 here, and you can see where it says continue with the next recommended activity. So it's kind of a nice flow. There is that slider underneath that continue with the next activity where they could get out of it and just go back and click and choose their own games. But it does prompt them to stay with the routine. So right now we're talking about the in-office routines, but there is also now home routines, which I'll go over after we're done with this kind of in-office routine. Now we're going to go into the BinocuPop, which, if you remember what I told you, let me continue with the recommended activities. We have to calibrate the screen because I hadn't done that, I guess, on this device yet. But that calibration should be stored for any given device. So we shouldn't have to recalibrate each time you go in. So now we know with BinocuPop, what we're doing is we're indicating what's the depth difference between that star and the circle. So I have this in the range training mode for convergence. So each one of these trials is fully in convergence based on the disparity of the two circles. But the disparity difference between the circle and the star varies. And this one, I believe, is set at a set stereo of around 250 seconds of stereo. So this is not the one where we're building in that stereo sensitivity. I'm getting a few of them wrong on purpose here so that we're going to be able to see the data that is generated after we're done the activity, because it is now tracking which ones they're getting wrong, right? So it's going to tell you how many of the farther did they get correct versus wrong, or the even correct versus wrong, and the closer. So that's kind of broken down as opposed to just reporting like correct and errors. So you can see where it says at the top, it's recording misses and then the streak. So it does require 2 correct answers before you move on to the next level, but it only requires 1 incorrect before you move down to the next level. So there does have to be some consistency here. In the settings, you will find that you can set like what the beginning versions level is. So say you have somebody you want to push to a higher level, but you only want them to be able to train for 2 minutes. So you might start them at like, a base out level of 10. So here you can see what I was talking about where it reports the trials, but also breaks it down for you, the closer, farther, and even. And we see on the bottom where you're going to go into the next activity in just a moment. But we say we got, so it automatically cues you to go into that divergence next. So, in the same thing, each one of these trials is set for divergence, but that disparity difference between the star and the circle is a standard around 250 seconds of stereo. Because I chose the range building mode. And I'm going to try to get as many of them correct as possible so I continue to progress into the higher levels and I'll get a higher level score in the base-in range here. Always remember that in that top right-hand corner, you can adjust the presence of the snow. When you click on that little blue button in the top, what you'll see is it comes down. You can either turn the snow off or turn it back on, but you can also adjust the transparency, which is so less transparent is going to be darker. More transparent is going to be a little bit more hidden. And you can also adjust the density. I find the snow to be extremely helpful to give me that reference of where the images are in the middle of the screen. And I also really like that it keeps my periphery open, right? I'm subconsciously aware of that motion in the periphery, which keeps from, going too far into like a tunneled effect where, I'm really just hyper focused on that vergent stimulus and able to keep things open and broad, which we know is the goal, to maintain that periphery and the ambient processing at the same time as we're trying to localize and gather the details of the stereo information in front of us. So here you can see I already have made it to the 14 base in because I've consciously tried to make sure that I get my 2 in a row to get to the next level. Great. And again, you can see it reports there. So I only got 1 wrong, and it was one of the evens, which do tend to be a little bit harder for me to. That one with the best stereo was 168. So it is making a little bit of adjustment while still focusing on the stereo. So now we're into the mixed, which is going to go back and forth between a convergence and a divergence overall stimulus. So it's encouraging like a recovery each time, but still while requiring that precise judgment of where is the star related to the circle, which I really like that we're able to make that decision at each trial. It's not just that we're localizing where is it, right? Now I have to get a little bit more in tune with like what is actually happening, which we know is, part of the hierarchy of the visual skills that we're trying to establish and train. So you can see also those little thumbs up or thumbs down that appear after each trial, and those do purposely move around on the screen, again, to encourage that peripheral awareness. And, you're not necessarily always going to know exactly where it came up, but you can use that as a cue too, where somebody might, quickly in their side vision be able to tell, like, well, what's the color of that, symbol after each trial, so they get that feedback of what they got it right or wrong. You don't necessarily need to make a saccadic eye movement over to it each time in order to notice it, but just another way of enhancing that peripheral awareness piece of things while doing the divergence activity. So I wanted to go through the entire flow of things here so you see how those buttons pull up at the end of an activity, so you can help train your patients on what to expect and what to use. So this reports the level and the base out and base in, the percentages, and again giving you that information closer, farther, and even. Full level. So here you're going to see where that mistake is that I happened, because I already did the base in, base out, and a mixed. But now, because I had those 3 boxes clicked and I had the routine chosen, it's trying to cue me to go back through a whole nother routine. So I'm actually going to not go through another routine, and I'm going to get out of it here in just a quick sec. So you see on the top left-hand corner over there, I'm going to be able to exit the routine. But I do have to slide to exit that routine and then confirm that I wanted to.